Good morning, everybody. It's your favorite aspiring revolutionary here, a wandering author, reminding you that we are all the authors of our own lives. As always, my message remains the same: spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. It is 4th of July weekend, and we are sitting at, I believe, a public park somewhere along Brushy Creek in Smith Lake. And I got to tell you guys, I paddleboarded here, and holy crap, you could see some of the traffic out there from right here, but it was some of the most difficult paddleboarding I've ever done, easily. So today we're going to continue our discussion of the Great Depression and its impacts on the world. We just finished up talking about the downfall of the Roman Republic yesterday. I'm going to have to brainstorm some more history to talk about. I think I'll probably go back to antiquity next time. Maybe talk about the Achaemenid Persian Empire, Old Testament, Cyrus the Great era type stuff. Anyways, so last time we spoke about the debt deflation scenario where depreciating assets kind of caused people to go bankrupt and exacerbated the depression. So first off, let's clarify, the reason we're talking about the depression is just because of the impact the economy has on everybody, and all of the talk about recession and all of this stuff that we see in the news all the time. People are definitely expecting there to be some kind of economic downturn, which plays into today's topic, which is the expectations hypothesis, and then we'll talk about the New Deal a little bit. So Peter Timmon, Barry Wigmore, and Christina Romer are some prominent economists who believe that the key to recovery was managing public expectations. That's why it's called the expectations hypothesis, right? So if we got all the people in the news today talking about how there is an inevitable recession, it shouldn't surprise us when we see people behaving as if there is one, and then that causes the recession to happen, right? Now, these economists, Wigmore, Timmon, and Romer, use the economic recovery following Roosevelt's election as their basis of support for this idea. Basically, the public became more confident in the economy whenever FDR took control, even though he had done no monetary or fiscal policy changes yet, right? They talked about the illusory prosperity that the credit boom that followed the Federal Reserve's establishment kind of engendered. Kind of similar to today. So, if you've paid attention to the news at all, you've probably seen the unprecedented money printing by our Federal Reserve since the COVID pandemic started, to the point that I believe something along the lines of like 70% of every dollar that's ever been printed has been printed in the last 2 or 3 years, which is insane, right? So the expectations of the public played heavily into it. Now, I don't think that's the full explanation of why, but truly, it doesn't matter why it happened. What matters is what happened afterwards and how that affected everybody, right? So around the world, most major countries had some significant shifts. We saw 2 prominent directions taken by many countries: communism and fascism, which are not good, right? So FDR is a pretty controversial figure because he definitely did some stuff like the internment of Japanese civilians that were not good. He also took us off the gold standard. There are people that believe that the sticking to the gold standard prolonged and exacerbated the depression. But truly, I think no matter which angle you look at it from, there is one thing we can say for certain about FDR, which is that his New Deal policies rescued American capitalism in an era where major democracies like Germany, France, Italy, Spain, all over the world were turning towards authoritarian governments, willingly renouncing their democracies in response to these crises. The United States held on to its democracy, and it showed a new way forward for people that wasn't just having the government take over every aspect of society, right? Now, there is some commonalities between what happened in the U.S. and what happened elsewhere. So FDR and Hitler both used state powers, government, to restart their economies, right? Obviously, the New Deal included organizations like the CCC, the Civil Works Administration, Farm Security Admin, Social Security. Basically, they looked at rescuing or supporting the unemployment relief, reforming the financial and banking institutions, and putting people to work, right? So they passed the Emergency Banking Act, the 1933 Banking Act. They even came up with, like, this is when child labor became illegal in the U.S. Minimum wage got started. The SEC, Security and Exchange Commissions, that was launched during this time period. Overall, the political and business leaders back then, which I think they should be today, but they were actually afraid of anarchy and revolution back then. The Red Revolution over in Russia, where the Soviet Union got formed, had just happened a few years ago. So the elites were actually worried about what the people might do. And so Joseph Kennedy Sr. actually said, "In those days I felt and said I would be willing to part with half of what I had if I could be sure of keeping under law and order the second half." So wealthy people were willing to give away some of their wealth in order to, stay at the top of society. And this was a lot, like in large part, responsible to the effect that, like, the Congress of Industrial Organizations, the American Federation of Labor had. Everyday ordinary people were organizing. They were really standing up and trying to get a better society for everybody, right? And now the New Deal brought about limited change in the nation's power structure, but it did preserve democracy in the U.S. when it failed elsewhere. It created a better balance among labor, agriculture, and industry, and it led to the New Deal era in the U.S. So we have a few different eras in the U.S. I've talked about the American Golden Age, which is basically the New Deal era. Prior to that, we had the Gilded Age, or the System of 1896, as it's known in political theory. And then following the New Deal era, we had a Reaganism whenever corporations took over. Greed became good again. So I personally think that FDR did a lot for American society. And I think that we could probably use some similar programs to what was done back then today, right? Ultimately, I think the only way that a nation can become great is if everybody has a part of it, right? If they've got a vested interest in it being great. If you've got a handful of people that own everything, and then the majority of people are renters or have hardly any money, they have no incentive to contribute to their country. They don't even really feel like it's their country, right? But yeah, so that's really pretty much all I have for you guys today. Public perception plays a large role in most recessions. So the fact that we keep seeing stuff on the news about an upcoming recession tells me that somebody probably wants there to be one, right? It decreases the purchasing or the price of assets, which makes it easier for wealthy people to buy them up. But yeah, as always, my message remains the same: spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. What are you guys doing to inspire, uplift, and empower your community today? Because this world isn't changing unless we all do our part, and you can count on me to do mine daily. Until next time, you guys have a good day now. Love y'all.